Welcome, everybody, to a session from Token and Microsoft, Generative AI, a game changer for infrastructure security and hacker strategy. I'm here with my colleague, Vijay, who is the General Manager of Defense Security Solutions for Microsoft. Vijay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, great to be here, John. I'm super excited about today's summit and today's session for us. I GM our security business for federal defense at Microsoft, and also a longtime national security professional, like many of us here today. Did some time in the military, did some time in some other organizations, but like everybody in our industry today, just really overcome by the advancements of AI and ML, and really, really excited to talk today.
I'm delighted to have you with us. You have quite a life story, which would take the whole session right now.
I don't think we're gonna have time to do that today.
I'm John Gunn. I'm the CEO of Token. We are dedicated to bringing out next generation MFA to stop phishing and ransomware attacks. But I don't want to turn this into a product pitch or other folks on the subject. So, what do you say, PJ? We jump right in and start talking about the coming generative AI storm that this industry that is already embracing. You want
I
to
mean,
start us off with some thoughts on that?
well, I want to start with, I don't know if anyone from the conference looked at your bio or my bio, but I think we started this when we started collaborating on this. We actually let AI take over when we started, right? I think when we started talking about this, it was hey, what's your bio? What's my bio? How do we do the title? And I think we just threw it into ChatGPT and let it go. So I mean, I think the storm may be coming for most, but I jumped right in. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of these things where you can't really, you can plan for it, or you can embrace it. And I think that's one of those topics and those infused topics that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so I want the audience to think that we're lazy, but we did, so everybody knows, the title for this session, the description, that one or two paragraph description, and all the images, everything. We used ChatGPT and Dolly 3 to create, not because we're lazy, but just to demonstrate the power in the real world applications, just a sliver of what it can do. That it can create all this just with the power of, and hopefully everybody's used it. If not, you got to go to the website. You can sign up in minutes and start using it immediately. It's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah, that first topic that we're talking about is really something that the whole industry has been talking about, is the coming generative AI storm. And when I think of it, John, I think a lot of folks may think of it as this technology or this function. I mean, at Microsoft, we've been looking at AI and machine learning for years now. When we even look at our products, or we look at our services, or we look at what the industry is doing, we look at how we're utilizing data and how we're putting all those algorithms together, how we're putting those LLMs together, and then we're utilizing them to advance productivity. We're using them to advance our initiatives, from threat hunting to security operations. But in general, we're seeing this wave of just productivity. We're seeing this wave of empowering people to do more with less, or I guess do more with more, right? A lot simpler, not like you said, not lazy, but giving people more tools to work with. I mean, when I think when I think of my skills as a PowerPoint guru in this industry, I mean, if these were my images, they would be, you know, a stick person, with zero automation, with zero anything, with zero color, and it would have been me talking the whole time. But I think this is really AI has been really empowering people already, right? You could see it on the horizon. It's you could see how much more you can get done. You could see how much more you can do. You can see how many more people you can reach. And I think that's the big thing, right? And that's what I think of when I think of an AI storm. I think of something that's all encompassing. I think also a storm implies thunder and lightning and earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes.
Uh,
Right now I see it as, almost like a Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It's just everything is edible.
Yeah, I read a report from a major consulting firm. I won't mention the name, but one of the big ones. It said that it was like 70 or 80% of AI projects fail from a definition of, they're providing ROI. And I'm sure our audience, what they're hoping to get from this session is, okay, read about AI, makes the headlines, they've read a few stories, blog posts, read some research, but hopefully we'll answer for them in the coming half hour here what it really means for them and how they can apply it so they can be in that 20% or 30% that has success in applying AI to the specific application of how to use it to defend your organization, your infrastructure. And I think that's so critical of everybody knows it's this super incredible, powerful tool, but I've never used this tool. How do I use it? And yeah, you can use ChatGPT to make a paragraph, but that's not going to protect me from hackers. So it'll be fun over the coming half hour to really dive into that and give people some direction on how they can use it to their benefit.
I think when you talk about a storm, you also have to talk about how do you prep for it, right? When you have something coming your way, it's not like you could just jump right in to the rain or you can jump right in to the conditions. What are you wearing? How have you protected your home, right? Do you have insurance? Do you know where everything is? So when the storm lets up or that calm happens, that you can conceptualize everything around you. And that's how I look at AI, John, is you have to be able to see as much as you can so that you can get your hands around it. And then you also have to be able to know, you may not know the exact power of AI, but unless you have an intent, unless you have somewhere where you want to go, unless you have a function of, hey, I'm going to utilize machine learning and AI to, like you said, protect every person and organization under my helm from ransomware better, right? How are we going to do that? Are we going to do that through learning? Are we going to optimize how people ingest data? Are we going to do that through our threat hunting teams? Are we going to start utilizing real language query to do things rather than coding? Are we going to, there's so many things you have to keep in mind, but two things. I think you have to be prepared for a storm and you have to know where you want to get to at the other end of it.
Yeah. That Vijay, that's a great segue to the second topic I wanted to discuss with you. And that's we choose the title double-edged sword, but it really is, because for all the benefit that so many organizations are pumping billions of dollars in to use this as this wonderful tool, at the same time, enemy states, cyber criminal organizations that are powerful and tremendous resources are using this tool for nefarious purposes. You're using it to attack, and we're already seeing that. And so that's it is a game changer. But that's the next topic I want to discuss, how this is used for good and evil. Did you want to share some thoughts on that? And I have a few of my own I want to share.
I mean, I'll plug in a little bit here. I think for everyone watching today, everything we do has a pro and everything we do has a con and an other, right? I mean, I used to fly F-18s for a living, and you know that, John, and it would everything was a pro. There was some amazing and some awesome goodness in being able to go fast, being able to do things, but there was an inherent danger in it as well, right? And um, almost, I don't want to say you have God powers, but to have these types of tools and assets, you have to have some type of morality behind you. You have to have some intent to do good. So when you this was something that you and I spoke about as well, was AI can be really helpful in strengthening defenses. So what I see by that is I think of diversity and I think of culture and I think of empowering students and I think of empowering all types of folks that would never have been in our industry to be in this industry to protect each other. You have to think differently. I think about what your organization does, how you look at MFA and how you look at authentication differently, right? I mean, that's the power of AI, right? But I think what you're going to dive into as well is, if you are someone with malintent, you are a lone wolf terrorist or an organization that's looking to do bad. You can actually utilize these tools to be just as creative. right? Because there are no restrictions around you. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, that's the challenge that everybody listening into this session is facing. And there's a real world example of it. Stephanie Carruthers, who's the chief people hacker for IBM X Force, published an incredible post. Everybody should go out and read it. What they did is she took her red team and she said, let's take a version of Chat GPT, modify it so we can use it, take the safety rails off, the guardrails off. And so they created some phishing emails and they said, let's see how it compares to our pros. And they did that. It did not beat their pros, but it came surprisingly close in the tests they did with these phishing emails. There are two big differences that really everyone needs to be aware of. One, it takes them about average of about 16 hours to craft a truly effective phishing email. That will fool a double-digit number of people. The ones that have misspellings or grammatical problems everybody catches. It's the ones that look very real. It takes us about 16 hours. They did it with ChatGPT in just 5 minutes with phishing attacks. I was at a conference. I was speaking with a senior person from IBM, and I said, "Here's the other big difference." I said, "But how many people on this planet have the skills that your red team does? 100,000?" And they said, "They're going to guess it's in the tens of thousands." And I asked, "But how many people do you think could use a corrupt version of a large language model to create these types of phishing emails in just 5 minutes?" And they said, "Oh, maybe 1 or 2 billion people." So what you've got now is you've got these tools that are readily available. We've seen it on the attack surface with ransomware as a service and just the tools that make it so easy for anybody to hack. Large language models will be used that way. And that is in the context of already, a recent Cisco report showed 90% of breaches are caused by phishing attacks. And that's what we're facing. We will be facing is these phishing attacks that will be driven by a large language model like ChatGPT against current MFA. And current MFA is 20-year-old technology. And so when you look at all these headlines that we see, MGM, Caesars, Johnson Control, the news is full of them. All of those were legacy MFA being defeated. And now it's going to be much more readily available to a much larger audience. So the threat is very real.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we spoke about earlier is just like you said was, I mean, I think this goes into planning to use LLMs and AI early, right? We at Microsoft we have, we have things that we do and what we ask all of our organizations to agree with early is the responsible use of AI and being able to bring that into the fold early and to be able to integrate that early. There's a lot there. And I think one of my calls to every organization watching, our presentation today is, this isn't just a technology function. This is a function of privacy. This is a function of your legal teams. This is a function of your HR teams. This is a function of almost every asset and every team that you have, that you have to integrate this early. You have to get the use cases early. You have to get the ethical guidelines set, and then you have to know where that data is and who's utilizing those LLMs within your organization, because that right there is going to show you how you're going to implement this for good, or how you're going to, see this perceived as the, that other side. So that is I think that really does lean into some of the conversations that we're going to continue to have here even today. Is it's going to enable every organization, but is it going to enable them to do more good, or is it going to enable them to do bad? And it becomes this new front of threat, right? And when we talk about different threats coming into not just the marketplace, but our ecosystem in general, I think traditionally you and I speak about ransomware and we speak about phishing and we speak about those types of things all the time. But when I think about strengthening defenses, enabling attackers, when, I mean, the study that you just spoke about, I mean, what I'm really thinking about is we're going to see more and more and more conflict. We're going to see more and more and more attacks, right? How do we prevent those, right? And what does the world look like now with AI, in the seat of an attacker? And I think we see that a lot in around the world, John. Like, I mean, you look at what's happening in Ukraine right now, and you look at how the conflict in Israel, is playing out. You look at different hotspots in the world, and they're all preceded by this digital threat. And these aren't your normal hackers anymore. These are people that maybe have never touched a keyboard, maybe have done other things. And I look at that like like a war zone. I mean, we look at our next slide that's coming up. That let's transition into that, right? How to chart your course strategies for navigating the digital war zone. I mean, you what I mean, John, what do you see? I mean, you see a lot of ransomware, a lot of phishing attacks. I mean, you obviously look at that for your organization and how to combat that. But I think it's more than protecting an email. I mean, logging in as a legitimate user to something that gives you access to critical infrastructure, health records, right? Things of that nature. That's more than just a phishing email. And I feel that that's now encroaching into this digital war zone.
Absolutely is, VJ. I mean, there was an interesting headline in HelpNet Security about a month ago, and the headline said, "Hackers aren't breaking anymore; they're logging in." And it really summed up what's happening. Of that, it's they're not only stealing credentials, which has been going on for decades, but they're defeating MFA. And that's what we're devoted to, is stopping that and talking about the how it's already being used for evil. Saw some research couple weeks ago from an organization that monitors the volume of phishing emails, and they said it's already being used to craft a larger volume. There are more, as you said, BJ,
Yeah.
people are doing it, people have access to it. They said that this period right now versus a year ago, phishing attacks are up 1,000%, phishing emails. And this is we're just seeing the tip of this iceberg. We none of us want to be the Titanic and crash into that, but it is, some people think, oh, you're a doomsayer, you're trying to get people excited. But when you look at the power of this, if it's weaponized, it's just so lethal to organizations. And I think when you look at how organizations protect themselves, I think that you're going to end up with this the haves versus the have-nots. Well, I'll explain is that for the hackers, everybody will have the power of generative AI because you don't have to harness it yourself. You'll just license it. You give a percentage to your gotten gain. So there'll be this incredibly large pool of people who can attack. Then it comes to defense. If you're the U.S. government, you're the DoD. I mean, you've got a perfect record, and you're going to keep it that way because you have some deep pockets. If you're a mid-sized organization or smaller, how would you ever protect yourself? And I think there'll be a flight to infrastructure that has got third-party protection with AI. I think that organizations will have love to hear your thoughts on it. Smaller mid-sized organizations won't be able to go it alone anymore. That you'll either have to be able to implement the AI you need for protection, or maybe that's why people, lived in castles in the medieval times. It was that brute protection of the walls. And I think every organization is going to need that. Maybe I should use a Star Wars, example instead, but that ability to protect their organization from these attacks.
Yeah. The it's interesting you bring up the Star Wars example and Castle. So I get to work with our government customers day in and day out. And just last month, I had the opportunity to go to Poland, and I was in Warsaw, and I was sitting with a lot of our partner nations and countries, and I was sitting with the UN. Was the UN representatives were there as well, and we're sitting in a closed room, and everyone was talking about the power of AI and machine learning and how to utilize it to do more good, especially. And this was just prior to this was, I think this was about a little over a month ago. This was just days prior to the Israeli Hamas conflict starting. And the number one concern wasn't how they were going to utilize the AI and the machine learning. To the contrary, it was already being utilized, right? In from folks like nation state actors in Russia. But the number one thing that, John, the number one thing that they wanted to do was own their data, know where all their data was. They wanted to put up walls and barriers around the countries and make the data sovereign, right? And indifferent of if individuals and organizations and countries do that or not, right? If there's policies put in place to make their data sovereign, and their clouds sovereign, I think it was a really key indicator to understand that there is this sense of nationalism, there's this sense of protection that is in place with all these regions, with all these organizations, and they want to know and see where all that data is. If you utilize AI, if you utilize machine learning, they want it to be what if it's going to be weaponized, similar to multi-factor authentication, right? Assume that compromise is going to happen. So they are assuming that this is being used for bad. This is being used for malintent. So if this is going to be used for bad, this is going to be used for malintent. Let's get all of our ducks in a row. Let's get all of our data in the right places. Let's tag everything appropriately. Let's know what is sensitive, what's not sensitive. Now, I'm talking about data here. Like I want to step back for a second because I think I dug myself in a rabbit hole. I really wanted to cover one specific point here. And I know we don't have too much time left, but I think when you think of AI, when I think of AI, John, I don't think of just data, right? I saw a demo last year, just prior to RSA. And you and I love, I mean, I love watching movies. You know, I watch more kid movies now than I do adult movies because I have three young children. But you know, whether it's whether it's Frozen or Little Rascals or it's the next, you know, Mission Impossible 18, like it, I the film industry is a great industry. Now think about how much money it takes to redo a take, right? And growing up as a first generation American, you know, a lot of the movies I watched and my parents watched were dubbed over with subtitles and those types of things. And now with generative AI, with being able to do things differently, I saw a demo where they took the facial features, the wrinkles in my forehead, the way my eyes light up, the way my mouth moves, how I look, and how I move my body depending on what region of country I'm in, and changed those individuals in that movie to speak, to move, to pause, as if I was Irish, as if I was from Europe, as if I was from India, as if I was from another country, to make it that much easier and that much more real, you know, as if it wasn't dubbed over. For me, that is part of the digital war zone. That is where we start seeing misinformation. That's where we're seeing disinformation. That's where you really need, you know, and if you look at how you can mimic that type of action, there is your true need for authentication at a very early state, right? How do you validate something as real right away before that goes in? Because imagine being, you know, when we were talking to the Ukrainian delegation and their leaders, it the art of disinformation and misinformation coming from their leadership was real. People thought they were actually saying it. People thought they were actually seeing it, where in reality they weren't, right? So though we were talking about data at first, we're talking about authentication in that sense. I'm looking at how are people and AI actually influencing people? Then how do you authenticate that? How do you make sure it's real? And that is full up right in the war zone now. That is happening as we speak. And I think to strategize around that, you have to know where your data is, you have to know where your people are, you have to know what your strategies are, and you have to authenticate early, right? And I think that's a big part about navigating this war zone.
I think it's so critical. The point is incredibly well made. But it's not just at the start of it. You look at identifying. Everybody has terabytes of logs created every day, and like, oh, okay, we can see what happened. And when you follow the history of how long it takes someone to figure out hackers are in. Zero trust is great. Some of the bad guys are getting in, but why does it take so long? And what I think one of the real benefits of AI will deliver will be to do that in real time, as you mentioned, in real time. Instead of being, you hear disclosure, the bad guys entered on, April 4th, and by July we figured it out, and then we tried to mitigate all damages. Hell, it's 2 weeks later. Good luck mitigating any damages. That's why their business is shut down entirely, or all the data is taken. And that's what I think AI will deliver if people use it to be able to identify when bad actors are in a network, and to do that in seconds instead of hours or days. And then what do you do when you identify that? Because you don't know for sure. It's kind of probabilistic. Okay, BJ is doing something he's never done before. Is it really him or not? So do I just shut him down? Do I let him do his job? Do I start shutting down everybody? Do I lose my productivity? Or do I have a way to verify that is that person? AI, I think, will help organizations do both. Identify when there really is a bad actor. So many times it's missed. And then authentication methods can be used so that it can be more like a continuous, or in a response to an attack. They can say, okay, what is perceived as an attack? We can verify it's really the
Yeah.
person. And that's probably, we're kind of drifting towards our final subject here of that. We're talking about the good versus evil. And so, VJ and I thought it'd be nice to, share some thoughts on, what does the future hold? Will it be utopian with all these wonderful benefits of AI, or will it be dystopian where hackers can go wherever they want and do whatever they want? Share your thoughts on that, if you would, VJ.
When I read this slide, for some reason I started thinking about the days of college for me. I was a horrible student. And it's just I had this philosophy that D stood for degree and C's got degrees. And if you waited till the last minute, it only took a minute. These were my college philosophies. And luckily I made it through. But when I think about how I would have utilized AI if it was available to me when I was in university, I probably would have utilized it to get everything done, but I was also the student always looking for shortcuts, you know? So if I had the world in front of me and if this was this utopia, I would still find ways to probably use shortcuts. It wouldn't allow me to read faster. It wouldn't allow me to, because my mind was already set to doing things in a different way. So when I think about, I was thinking about my kids, right? And I was thinking about them having the world in front of them, having toys and food and whatever they want, and giving someone everything. My son came down the other day, and I know Santa's coming in a couple weeks, and I know he's thinking about it, and he's thinking, man, what do I ask if I have everything? And he goes back to the basics. It's funny. He's like, soccer ball, right? I don't need a lot. I want to go kick a ball around. And I think about this topic. Let me relate it back is we are headed to a world where information and we are going is going to be everywhere, and we're going to have it at our fingertips, right? But it's up to us individually to be able to utilize it to do more good. And I think that's where this question lays is, are we going to create a world where we're looking at AI and this digital revolution to do more good and create this utopia? Or is it going to be the opposite, right? I live my life by 5 words, John. If not me, then who? And I think about those 5 words when we think about how we utilize even technology and innovation. If I don't use it, someone else less willing, less able, with different morals and ethics will. And I challenge everyone to ask themselves those same words. I mean, what do you think? Do you think we're headed for doom and gloom, or do you think it's going to be gumdrops and rainbows here?
Since you said you love movies, I'm going to give you a quote from a movie. I think it's both happening at the same time, as Forrest Gump said. The utopian part of it, identifying cancer from scans where a human can't, but AI can, and curing so many of it, finding cures to other diseases, improving efficiency in the workforce, and improving efficiency ever, making our lives easier, and also improving companies' ability to apply AI to defend themselves. And the dystopian part is bad actors are already using it, and a lot more will have access to it. And it's getting a lot more powerful. And I think we look at today in this conversation, which I really enjoyed this conversation with you. Thank you for joining today. But when you look at what's happening, you say, wow, AI is an incredibly powerful tool. It's creating phishing attacks that are as good as the best people, in a fraction of time. That's just today. When you look at the improvements in the algorithms that are being used, you look at the constant improvements in computing power. You look at what NVIDIA and others are doing, with GPUs. When you look at how data sets are getting bigger and bigger in the collaboration, you've got Chat GPT with, 1 trillion parameters, and you've got, Amazon who's working on Olympus, rumored that's going to have 2 trillion. And it's just, we have to remember that the power of AI is, who knows what actually happened at OpenAI, with the scary future that may have, prompted some actions. But the power today that we perceive, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, it's going to be, manifold. That is just going to be, it's going to increase in ways that will deliver both. And I think for organizations, all of our audience, hopefully what they take away from this is, they have to embrace AI, in their defenses, because, the bad people already have. And somebody joked about, I think it was Bojan, the CEO of Hyper. He posted a funny meme on LinkedIn at RSA where it showed, every single vendor claimed they had AI in their solution, but navigating that and picking the right AI solutions, taking some risk of being early adopters, working a collaborative effort to defend that. People will have to. They'll have to embrace AI. They can't sit on the sidelines and think about it. Is this a good investment? Is there ROI there? It is a great investment. The ROI is there. The challenge, of course, is picking the right AI solutions. But without it, the have-nots are going to be at the mercy of the haves.
Yeah.
And the haves are criminal, hacker organizations.
I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head, right? I look at it even more than an investment. It's already there. It lives within your organization. It lives within your products. It lives within your everyday. It lives within your life outside of your 9 to 5. So, embracing it is just understanding where it is now and then starting there. So this has been so fun, John. Thanks again for this. Yeah.
And thanks to our audience for listening in. Hopefully it's valuable for you. We appreciate it.